The time has finally come where we're considering putting our kids to sleep in the same room. And that is so super exciting because we want to foster a healthy connection with our kids. And we want them to have that sweet talking to each other before bed, or maybe getting up and spending time together before we wake up. We want the connection. We want to fuel that connection. On the other hand, we're riddled with fear because how are we going to do this? Our kids don't go to bed at the same time, or maybe they're not sleeping through the night, so one child's cry is going to wake up the other child, or the early morning wake up is just so difficult that then we're scared. And so fear takes over. And fear is actually generally the emotion that runs the show. So if we're not aware of what is fueling our behavior as parents, we may fall into a trap where fear is running the show on a constant, and we're constantly doing things to prevent outcomes. So we don't want our kids to wake each other up, so we just keep them separated. But in this video, we're going to talk about what you can do to foster a healthy transition with your children, sharing the same room, and doing that with confidence and with clarity and without fear. So there's actually three main reasons why you're even considering putting your children in the same room. And the first reason, it could be because you just don't have the space in your home and you don't have a choice. And so you're kind of pushed in the corner and you feel like, I have to do this. There's no other space for me to put my child. So I have to make it work. And actually, sometimes fear is a good incentive. So feeling like you're pushed in the corner and you don't have a choice makes you have to come up with a way to make it work. So let's not feel bad about this. We can actually use it to empower us to make a change successfully. The second reason why you might feel like it's time is because you want your privacy back. And it's just hard to have a child in your room for a long time. So the first few months, that's very normal. But after a while, you may feel like, okay, I can't be walking on eggshells anymore, and I need to be able to be comfortable in my space, in my sleep space, being able to rustle the sheets at night or cough or sneeze without feeling scared that I'm going to wake up my child. And as your child gets older, they're more aware of what's going on in your sleep space. So if you guys are all sharing a room, you may start to feel like your presence is disruptive. And so it's just time for change. And the third reason you may think, that's it, it's time, is maybe because your kids are asking for it, or you're thinking about those warm, fuzzy feelings of having your children in the same room. And that is coming from a place of love. So sometimes our initiative comes from a place of fear. We don't have the space, we need to move our child out of our bedroom, and so that's the incentive that pushes us along. But sometimes the incentive is love, and we think to ourselves, this is actually what needs to happen next because my kids are asking for it. So I think this was about 20 years ago. I have two girls. They're 2.5 years apart. My youngest was about 6 months. They were in separate rooms. We had like a little half nursery connected to our room, and that's where my baby was, Maya. And my other daughter had her own room. And I remember that one morning I woke up and I kind of heard noises, and I wasn't sure what I was listening to. But after I got up and I went to check on my baby, I saw both my girls in the crib. And it was the sweetest thing I ever saw. It was my older daughter, who was 3 years old, had climbed into my baby's bed and just was laying with her, and they were talking and they were playing, and it was the sweetest thing, just hanging out in the morning. That's when I realized it was time. It was them who told me it was time. It was like the girls were saying, we love being together, we just want to have time together. Please put us in the same room. And that was my initiative to move Maya out of that extra half nursery into my daughter's room. And that's when they started room sharing. So you may take your children's initiative and say they're the ones who are actually asking for it. You may decide, I really want to foster that nourishing connection, and you may be the one to initiate that. Or it may be just the situation. The situation is pushing me into that direction, and so I need to make it work. When we think about making decisions, as we said, it's either love that's fueling our decision making or fear. And while the situation may be pushing us in that direction, so fear initiated the shift, we can still choose to move from a place of love. And that means that, okay, I don't have the space in my home and I need to keep my kids in the same room now, but I'm going to be excited about it, and I'm going to see how I can do it from a place of love and not out of a place of fear. because we always want to show up from a place of love. So now we know we're going to actually put our kids in the same room. Super excited. It's like exciting and scary at the same time, but we're going to hold on to the excitement and we're going to look forward to this process and we're going to learn how to do it confidently. So I'm going to talk about the 3 essentials that we need in order to make this shift. And in the 3rd essential, there's actually 3 more essentials. So make sure you stay with me to the end. Now, the first essential that we need is that both our kids need to be sleeping through the night. Because think about it. If our kids aren't sleeping and we put them together, we're going to have a chaos party at nighttime. And that's not what we want. That's actually exactly what we're scared of. So we want to make sure that both kids are sleeping through the night. Now, sleeping through the night just means that from when we put them down until the morning, they can sleep. It doesn't matter how long that night is. They don't have to be on the same schedule. They just need to both be able to be sleeping through the night, to be able to fall asleep without crying. And then we can start working on room sharing. The second essential that we want to put focus on is that we're going to reverse engineer when we put our children to sleep. So what does that even mean? So think about 2 children in the same room. Most likely, both children are not going to be on the same sleep schedule, which means one child will sleep longer, probably, let's say, a child who sleeps 11 to 12 hours a night. And then we may have a child who's still napping that's a bit older and only needs 10 hours of nighttime sleep. So if your 3-year-old, let's say, is still napping and they're sleeping from 8:30 to 6:30 in the morning, that's a 10-hour night. But your baby sleeps much more than that. So they would sleep, let's say, 6:30 to 6:30. So how do we put them in the same room? We want to actually look at the mornings. So we want them to wake up at the same time rather than going to sleep at the same time. Because in the morning, sleep is less deep. And so we're much more capable of being bothered by external noises, by things going on at home, by another child being awake. And so we would prefer that they would wake up at the same time rather than them going to sleep at the same time. Going to sleep is actually the easiest time to be able to filter out noises, because during the first 3 to 3.5 hours of the nighttime sleep, that's considered deep sleep cycles, which are deep, basically. And that means that noises will bother us less. I know that for me, I was able to go into my child's room and put laundry away during those deep sleep hours because I could open and close the drawers without being nervous that they would wake up. I would never dare do that at 4 in the morning or 5 in the morning. We want the mornings to be in sync, and we want the evenings to be staggered and not the other way around. The 3rd essential that we're talking about now is the 3 tools that can help us make this facilitation happen more easily. So while we can try and do everything to make things perfect, our kids are not robots and we may have disruption at night. And so then we need to know how to navigate. Because as I always say when I talk to parents in my sleep practice, is that it's not about sleep like being done. We're not looking to check sleep off a box. And it's not like we do something and then we don't have to do it anymore. It's actually a value that we're embracing. And if sleep is a value that we're embracing, then I need to know how to navigate the ups and downs. And so when my kid is teething, there's going to be a down and I need to know how to navigate that. And then when my older child is not feeling well, that's another down and I need to know how to navigate that. So if there's in the same room and there's a situation that comes up, how do I navigate that? So I have 3 tools that I used, I swear by them, and I recommend them to everybody in my practice who's working on having kids share a room, and that really helps facilitate the process. Together with that, it helps you be in the driver's seat, feel confident, knowing that regardless what gets thrown your way, you have a trick up your sleeve. And to me, that's the ultimate takeaway. So the first tool that I recommend is a pack and play. Now, your child's sleeping in a crib. Your other child is probably in a toddler bed, maybe still in a crib, depending on how close in age they are. But you want to have a backup plan. So when a child doesn't feel well, when a child is teething, when sleep is disrupted for any reason, you want to be able to know that you can pick up the child, generally the younger child. You pick up the younger child, whether he's the one in distress or the one sleeping, it doesn't matter. And you literally pick them up and move them straight to your bedroom in the pack and play. So you have an extra bed in the closet ready for whenever you may need it. And so if there's a disrupted night, the first thing you do is take the pack and play out. And we all know this is like almost with one hand you can do this. You take it out, you open it up, and there you go. You've got an extra bed for the child so that you can move him into your room and preserve both of their sleep. So if the older child is up, you're preserving the younger one's sleep. And if the younger child is up, you're preserving the older one's sleep, and you can navigate. All of a sudden, it's like, here I am, I'm confident, I've got this. Doesn't matter what's going on. I have a plan B. And those plan Bs help keep you in that place of certainty. And your child is picking up on your energy. So if you're in a place of certainty, then you're in the lead. And that helps make things smooth. The second essential is a sound machine. And a sound machine is a device that we can use with our children to help their brains filter out background noise. So, for example, with my boys, Daniel and Nathaniel, who are 6 years apart, I would put Daniel to sleep and I would put the sound machine on. So that was like the last bit of our sleep routine. He would have his last kiss goodnight, get in bed, I put the sound machine on, I walk out. And then he's falling asleep with background noise. And then 2 hours later, when I came in with Nathaniel and it was time for him to go to sleep, even though he knew I had oriented him already around being quiet when we go in the room and Daniel's already sleeping, he's not a robot. And so maybe he needed to pee and he would be like, Mom, I gotta pee. Or he would say like, can you scratch my back? Or whatever it was that he would be saying to me. The sound machine enabled me to be able to navigate bedtime without getting super nervous or walking on eggshells or telling him he had to be quiet all the time because that didn't feel natural or kind. And so having the sound machine just facilitated the falling asleep process. And it also ended up helping me in the middle of the night because the sound machine just played until the morning. Now, keep in mind, these sound machines, you're not putting them on a high volume. So this should not be a disruption. It should be just a very low background sound that helps our children sleep through the night without being bothered by other noises that may come up as they're sleeping. The third essential is what I call a grow clock or a rise to wake clock. Now, a grow clock is for your older child. It's for the child who is probably anywhere between the ages of 2.5 and older. And this device helps a child who otherwise wouldn't know when morning is here to recognize that, oh, it's morning. Because when children go to sleep, generally, sleep is best when it's done in a dark setting. So we close the shutters and we make it very dark and there's no way to know that it's morning. But when we have a rise to wake clock, it changes color in the morning. So remember the story that I told you about my girls, Noah and Maya? And my daughter, Noah, had a rise to wake clock that would turn a different color when it was time to get up. And that just gave her agency over waking up in the morning. She'd see that it would all of a sudden turn a different color and she'd be like, oh, morning, it's time to get up. And if it still wasn't that color, she would wait or she would fall back asleep. And so on that morning, when I found my girls in the same bed, it was actually because Noah had recognized it was time to get up and she just let herself out of her bed, kind of tiptoed over to Maya's bed and snuck into her crib. But that was thanks to the fact that we had this rise to wake clock. And so she had agency. So she didn't wake up and start screaming for me, or she didn't wake up in distress, or she didn't wake up with uncertainty. She woke up knowing it's time to get up. I can get up now. And instead of stopping in my bed, she actually just went straight to her sister's bed, which was for me that bit of information that let me know that she really, really wanted her sister in her room. And so that gave me the confidence to then say, okay, it's time to make that shift. So now we have the tools. We know the tools that we're going to use to help facilitate the process. So we have tricks up our sleeve, as I like to say. And I feel like that totally puts us in a position of being in the lead, which is what our children want. They want a parent in the lead. They don't want that responsibility of having to be in the lead. So we have the tools. We also have clarity. Why are we doing this? And remember that when we have our why, we are much stronger in our stance. We know what the intention is in making the shift. So we can hold on to that, knowing that there are going to be ups and downs, but we have a strong why, so that keeps us focused. And we know how we're going to navigate the ups and downs when they come up, because they will come up. And so we can comfortably know that we have the tools, we have the understanding to be able to help facilitate that transition. So I'm looking forward to hearing how room sharing is going for you and what you're finding has been really helpful in making that transition possible. Thanks for being with me. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.